Hello my dears and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making a summer play suit from 1949 that's fit for a princess birthday. Alright my dears, today we are actually working on a gift for my niece. I have been known in the past to make a princess dress or fun princess themed dresses for all of my nieces. And I've got a handful, 7 in fact. And it is our youngest niece's turn, number 7, to have her first princess dress from Auntie Lexi. So I did go ahead and choose a vintage pattern for this project for her birthday gift. I ran it by her mama. I also asked, hey, what about favorite colors, favorite themes and styles? And I came up with something that I am hoping she will be in love with. Now this particular play suit is separate. It comes with a skirt, bloomers, and a very cute ruffled top. Everything is nipped in and cinched in with a bit of elastic, which is great because it makes it easy on and easy off during the summer. It can go over a very cute bathing suit, or you can just run around town in it feeling awfully pretty and nice and cool during the hot summer months. For this, it's shown in a couple of different ways. It's shown with a solid color all the way through with just a change in lace or trims, but I thought it would be awfully fun to do a couple of different things. I'd like to do the base in this darker purple fabric, so the skirt, the bloomers, and the under portion of the shirt, and then do my ruffles in this white and purple fabric with these beautiful purple flowers. And then of course we can't get away without a little bit of lace. Every princess needs a bit of lace. And I did go ahead and purchase this beautiful cotton eyelet lace that will be easy to wash up for her mama. In fact, all of this is cotton, so it will be able to go into the regular wash, tumble dry, easy peasy. Again, this is for a little girl that I want to be able to wear it and just have fun. So let's go ahead, get all of our pieces ready to go, everything cut out, and get stitching. All right, my dear, so the first thing we want to do for this pattern is attach the front bodice with the sleeves and the back bodice with the sleeves. And because of the way this top is shaped, in this lovely sweeping kind of off the shoulders, we want to fully attach these sleeves before we move forward to working on the neck piece, which is the ruffle piece. Now this entire top is going to be too big, and it is meant to be that way because it's supposed to be nice and gathered. So we don't have to worry about any darts. We don't have to worry about any zippers or buttons. So we just want to go ahead and get this all nicely fitted into place. When we are doing this, when we are attaching the back bodice to the sleeve, one thing that it does want us to do is, as we're closing up this side seam on the right side, is to leave a small opening here. This little gap in our stitches, we can see here, what they're doing is they are creating the hole for the casing. They are creating a spot for us to then later be able to get our elastic into this top portion of the shirt, which is going to help gather it all up and hold it onto the shoulders. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch all the way up the line. And then when we come to that spot that's indicated with our hash marks on our pattern page, we're going to back stitch, jump a little forward, and then finish up that seam with a quick little back stitch as well to make sure everything is nice and locked into place. So let's get these side seams pinned and then get over to the sewing machine so we can get all of these closed up. Now once we've finished that, we're going to finish the entire top portion of the bodice before moving on by then also closing up these bottom sections of the sleeves. All right, my dears, we officially have the sleeves put onto the front and back of our bodice. We have connected through the shoulders. We have also connected the sides here. I then did go ahead and trim all of the seams in really close, removing the excess seam allowance with my pinking shears to help mitigate any major fraying or bunching of the fabric underneath the garment, which would of course not only make it look bad, but make it feel rather uncomfortable. So we've got that trimmed in nice and tight, which means the next thing we need to do is work on our ruffle. Our ruffle is going to come across the front of the shoulders here. And so I've got that piece cut out right here. Now this is lightly gathered to begin with, and then of course after you add the elastic to the top of the blouse, it's going to be gathered even more, and it's going to have a really lovely flouncy feel to it. So I will run 2 lines of gathering stitches across the top, then gather everything up by hand, and then we can work on pinning it into place for the top of the blouse. Now for this, it does recommend that you hem the bottom of your ruffle before you gather and put it into place. However, instead of hemming the bottom of it and then applying lace over the top of it, what we are going to do, here it is go ahead and apply our lace to the bottom first, because this is a raw edged lace. So we will apply it to the bottom, right sides together, flip it out, again, trimming everything up with our pinking shears, and then we can get to gathering and ruffling. All right, my dears, we have the lace put onto the bottom of the ruffle. We've got our 2 rows of gathering stitches into it. And so now what we can do is, like we normally do, making sure we're leaving the outside stitches out, we can go ahead and start to pull and gather up this ruffle by hand, being a little bit gentle. This is cotton thread because we're working with cotton today and we don't want to break that. So we're just going to gently move these gathers down the row here. We're going to gather this all the way up until it fits into the top of our blouse, into that shoulder section or the yoke of the top. Now I'm going to gather up to one side about halfway through, and then we're going to go to the opposite side, and just like we've done in previous projects, we are going to gather from the other side as well, and that ensures we never have that short string on the end that we can accidentally pull all of our gathers out of place. All right, there we have the beginnings of our shoulder ruffle. Now we can work on really getting those ruffles nice and even as we pin them across the top of our blouse. But before we do that, we do want to consider the upper trim. As we can see in this original picture here, there is lace coming up out of the top. So it's not just trimmed along this bottom, it's also peeking up out of the top. And I do think I want to do that for this dress as well, especially because I am going to eliminate it from the bottom of the skirt. A white lace on the bottom of the skirt felt like it had too much risk of just getting really dirty, and so we'll go with the white ruffle, but I'm going to eliminate the lace on the bottom and instead go ahead and double up that lace on the top, making it extra princessy at the top. But that does mean that we need to make sure we get this lace into place here. Now there are 2 ways that we can do this. The first way is to go ahead and get this basted into place on the top of the collar before we put the ruffle on. That's going to make sure it's going to stay in place nicely. It's not going to shift around or move around at all. And of course that we will get exactly the dimension or the width of the lace that we are looking for peeking out at the top. The other option is to go ahead and get this, pin it into place, get this, pin it over the top, and use the sandwich method. And this lace would face down inside in between the ruffle so that when you flipped the ruffle it would pop up and peek out of the top. What I think I will do is baste it into place because I want to make sure it's the correct width all the way around. The other reason is that when they are flipping this and we're creating that casing for the elastic to go through, it is wanting to then create a top stitching that's going to be holding that elastic into place, and I don't want to have to worry about extra layers that are going to be shifting or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and baste this lace into place. I'm going to do it a little bit shorter than I've got on the bottom of the ruffle, allowing just the eyelet portion to peek out instead of having this extra width at the bottom. And then we'll go ahead and get those ruffles also pinned into place, and we'll make sure we get everything stitched exactly where we want it to be. All right, my dears, we are back after a little break. When we left off, we were just getting the lace for the top ruffle basted into place, and I have got that done. I have it with, instead of right sides together like we would normally sew something, I have wrong sides together. And that is because when we flip the ruffle so that the ruffle can be seen from the outside of the garment, it needs to stand up. So you can see if the wrong sides are together here, when we turn that ruffle and flip the collar, now the right side is going to be showing on our very sweet little shirt. So I have that all basted into place. It's not going anywhere, nothing is going to shift, there's not going to be any unsightly bunching, which means we can now get to the part where we get our ruffle on the top collar here. Now for the ruffle, we are also going to be flipping it out, and we want the outside to be showing against the outside of the shirt. So in other words, both right sides should be showing. I frequently get turned around when I'm doing an article like this, where instead of doing it the very traditional way, sometimes what I will do is I will just put it together, find my little seams, make sure everything is kind of lined up where I want it to go with a rough outline here. And then I can know I want this part to be showing, and I want it to be showing against this purple. So that means that when I sew it, these two pieces have to be tucked in together. Okay, now I really know which way I'm supposed to go, which means that now with the top lace, it's wrong sides together. It's going to be right side to wrong side for the ruffle. Now it does say that in the instructions as well, but sometimes I just get mixed up with instructions, and I do need to stop, take a minute before I sew it, really examine it and make sure I've got it right in my head before we get there. So we are there. Let's find our corner, and we're going to line this up with a seam on the shoulder so that it's kind of hidden. Where is my little seam from my lace? We'll hide everything together, keep everything nice and clean. And now I'm going to pin this into place and anchor it. And then from there, I can really start to work the ruffle all the way around and make sure that the gathering is nice and even, and that it feels like it's going to look really, really nice. All right, my dears, let's get these pins out and do a quick check of our ruffle. Make sure everything is looking great. Do a bit of a ruffle reveal. All right, guys. And boom. I think it looks beautiful. All right, guys, I'm pretty happy with this ruffle. So the next steps is going to be finishing this top part off and getting it nice and secure. So in order to do that, what I think I would like to do is trim down this edge. It's quite large and thick because we've got 3 pieces of fabric, one of them being ruffled. And so I want to trim this down fairly close to that bottom seam line, then flip it, press it really firmly with the iron, and then we can go ahead and get our elastic ready and get that seam, that top stitching in place in order to keep that elastic band in place. And then we can move on to putting the elastic band in the arms as well as in the rib cage portion. All right, my dears, I've given the top blouse, hear a firm pressing everywhere. And because I was already at the ironing board, I did go ahead and press up the bottoms and the arms to create the casing that we will need for our elastic to cinch in at the rib cage and to cinch in at the arms. I thought, you know, I'm over here anyway before I get more ruffles at the top because of the elastic. We will just go ahead and get this all ironed out. So for the casing, and we can go ahead and now do all of this honestly on the machine, and then once we've got everything done, we can add the elastic. What they would like us to do is, now that we've got it ironed and folded and pressed in here, is to top stitch it. And we want to top stitch it allowing the full capacity of the casing to be open so that we can really work in this elastic and making sure that we're measuring everything to size. Now, for the rib cage and for the shoulders, I am going to be using this elastic here. It's, I don't know, like 1/4 inch. But for the arms, I'm going to use something a little bit smaller. I have 2 here. I'm going to get them out, see which one kind of feels softer, because I don't think we need as much heft in the arms as we will need in the shoulders. The shoulders and the rib cage, that's holding the whole blouse on, but the arms are just to make them puffy and cute. So I feel like we just need just a little bit, just enough to keep them in place, but not so much that we're strangling her little arms, because it's never comfortable when your shirt is cutting into you on your arm. So we're going to use the smaller elastic on the arms and then the wider elastic at the rib cage and the shoulders. But first things first, let's get stitching and get all of the casing closed up. As we are doing that, remember, when you're closing up casing that you are going to be putting a ribbon or elastic through, you need to leave a small opening. I like to do it at one of the seam breaks, like maybe on the side, or if you are doing a dress that has a center seam back, you can leave it there, but I like the sides the best. Then once we've threaded the elastic through, we can do a quick whip stitch here to completely close everything up, but you will need that little space left open. So when you're going all the way around, make sure you stop short. So let's get all of these casings closed up. All right, my dears, we have a beautiful bodice completed, ready to go. We've got everything gathered up. We've got all of the elastic in. We've got it into our little arms, around the rib cage, and of course this top with the beautiful lace and the ruffle. So it's time to move on to the skirt portion. However, it's getting pretty late at my house, and so I'm going to tuck in for the night, and I'll see you guys back here tomorrow to get working on the skirt for this lovely princess birthday dress. All right, my dears, we are back, and it is time to start working on the skirt for our project for Gigi. I've got the top done. It's up over here on our little mannequin. I like to be able to have this up to show what I am making as I'm making it, mostly for myself, so I can make sure everything is coming together nicely. It's not always quite the same when it's simply laid flat on a table. So we've got our little top here. It's looking really nicely and fitting really nicely, and now we need to do a skirt to go with it. This particular skirt pattern is just a big old rectangle. Now you can see I have shortened it. Once again, this is a size 6 or size 7 pattern. She is a size 6, and so I did shorten it accordingly, because not only is she a little bit shorter than the pattern was accounting for, we're going to be adding that ruffle onto the bottom, and I didn't want a full or ankle length skirt. I wanted it to kind of hit at the knee or just below, so that it's still active and fun and it's not going to get tripped up on anything. So that's nice and shortened. It's a big rectangle, and what we're going to be doing is gathering across the top, and then they'd like us to put it into a straight flat waistband. Not uncommon for the time period. What I have done is I've cut the waistband out just a little bit big, which the pattern was already just a tiny bit big for her anyway, but that will allow us to put the skirt into a bigger waistband and then add elastic. I think I may still add just one little button at the top but the elastic, as opposed to a firm waistband, is going to give her a little bit of room to breathe, a little bit of room to grow and to move around and not have to worry about it being really tight or exactly to her measurements. She'll have a little bit of room to wiggle. So we're going to do that, and I think we will do the same on the bloomers, or we may even just gather the top of the bloomers. We'll decide when we get there. But to start, what we need to do is get the gathered lines in here, because it does have us doing a simple gather. It's not pleats or anything like that. So we'll get the line run across the top just the same way we did across the yoke of the shirt. 2 lines, gather those bad boys up, get them nicely evenly distributed and fitted into the waistband. And from there we can get the top closed up. All right, my dears, for the waistband of this skirt, we're going to be doing the right side of the waistband to the wrong side of the skirt. The reason that we're going to be doing that is because in doing so, what we can do is we can attach just one side of the waistband here. We can attach just this side to the top of the skirt, and then when we fold it over and we come to the inside, we can tug up all of the gathers, all of the raw edges from both the first side of the waistband and the skirt, and we can tuck them in and hide them all within the waistband. So one side of the waistband, we're going to have a nice ironed hem allowance here. We're going to stitch the other side, and then when we flip it and pull this over, we're going to end up with this turn. The wonderful thing about this particular method is that, again, we are closing up all of those raw edges. There's not going to be anything fraying at the top of the skirt. There's not going to be anything itching or feeling out of place. So let's go ahead and get this pinned into place. Right side of the waistband to the wrong side of the skirt. We're going to match the centers, and then just as they're doing here, we're going to leave that flap at the end. That's going to give us the button on the top side of the skirt. All right, my dears, I have sewn the right side of the waistband to the wrong side of the skirt. Here is the top of the skirt. And now here's the magic of doing the waistband this way. We've turned the skirt right side out. I've gone ahead and ironed down a nice deep hemline. And now I can bring this over. See, I'm going to hide all of these raw edges in. All of them tucked up beautifully in the waistband. No raw edges on the inside, no raw edges on the outside. Clean, clean, beautiful, lovely. Then on our side, once we've gone ahead and done that, what we are going to do is we will leave this side open. Okay, so this will be all stitched up close. We can then lace our elastic, our nice thick wide elastic band, through our waistband here. It'll come out the other side. We will anchor it here, and we will anchor it here. Then this piece, which is longer, will come up and over to create the button band. Little button right there. We'll be good to go. Okay. Boop. Gonna be great. All right, we have the waistband of our skirt done. You can see that the top is just a little bit gathered. There's a tiny bit of stretch with that elastic. We do still need to get the button in place. And the other thing I was considering for this is running a line down the center of the waistband using the stretch and sew method in order to prevent the elastic from turning around in the waistband. It's a pet peeve of mine when I buy something that has an elastic in the waistband. If you wash it once and the elastic gets turned, you're always then fiddling with it and you're messing with it throughout the day and it bothers you. So I am considering running a quick stitch line down the center, stretch and sew method, just making sure that it has a nice center seam or stitch line down the center of that elastic to keep it in place and keep it from rubbing around and flipping around while she's playing. So that part is otherwise done, which means we need to get the ruffle on. I do have here in our white fabric with the purple flowers a bit of ruffle already cut out. I also have a little hem on the bottom of it. So I just need to run a quick set of stitches along here and gather it up so that we can get it put onto the bottom of our skirt. All right, my dears, the last thing we have to do to complete this princess project is to complete the bloomers, because what summer set would be complete without a set of bloomers so that you can still do all of the fun things without worrying when your skirt flies up. This particular pattern has a very basic bloomer pattern, super simple. It's nice, a wide waistband, which means we can alter it and take it from buttons to elastic without any problems. The legs are brought together with elastic as well, so it's a simple finish, but it keeps things tucked in nicely around the thighs so she can go on the swings, play, do somersaults, do cartwheels, and not have to worry about whether or not her skirt flies up. So let's get this knocked out, and then this project is complete. To start, they would like us to close up or bring together the center seams of the front and back of the bloomers. After that, we are going to be sewing up the sides, and the last thing they would like us to do is to then close the center crotch seam. So let's start getting all of the pattern pieces off and get these pinned together to get this center seam in place. All right, my dears, we have the center seams sewn up, front and back. And then we did go ahead and attach the side seams. So we are well on our way. The last thing to do is this crotch seam here. And what we're going to do is kind of pull them apart and then line up the center seam on the bottom. And then all we have to do is just a quick stitch across the top. Once we've done that, we will go ahead and iron around the legs in order to create the casing for the elastic that is supposed to go around the thigh area. With our thighs done, we've got elastic in them. It's time to move on to the waistband. Now the waistband is not the same width as the actual bloomers. It's a little bit smaller, and so we are going to need to do a little bit of a gathering stitch on the bloomers themselves, even though we are going to be using elastic. So there will be a bit of gather in the bloomers, and that will come into the waistband, and the waistband will have less gathering than the bloomers themselves. And this should make it a little bit more comfortable, especially if we're wearing it underneath a dress. We'll have a slightly softer, flatter waistband coming out into the bulk of the bloomers. So we'll go ahead and run our gathering stitches across the top and then get our waistband set in.